I think what's interesting about this trio that we have here, this triad, is that we're all Lubavitcher Chassidim, and we all coach professionally. And I just think that's so cool. And it's so much for each of us to share about what is the coaching work that we do, and how does it relate to the meaning of what it means to be a Lubavitcher Chossid for each of us. And because I think sometimes people have a kind of dichotomized thinking that, like, being a Lubavitcher Chossid, there's like maybe a certain stereotype or a certain institutional idea of what that is and isn't. And for some people that might be mutually exclusive to being a coach. So I think that for me personally, I'm welcoming this as an invitation to share what does it being a Lubavitcher Chossid mean to me, and what does coaching mean to me? Because to me, they're like inextricably intertwined. Like today's Hayom Yom would be a great place to start, where the Tzemach Tzedek, third Rebbe of Chabad, taught a teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, where the Baal Shem Tov, basically the punchline of the teaching, the Baal Shem Tov says, my mission, my desire is to have the Jewish people, right, produce the kind of harvest that a divine natural resource, that a natural resource of the divine can actually produce, right? Like to the Baal Shem Tov, the Jewish people, and I think that for the Baal Shem Tov, it's really every living being is included in that, and in a certain way, we're all expressing the divine in some form or another. And this is what the verse calls Eretz Chayfetz, like God's like precious land. And we all have so much to unfold and to blossom and to express and to manifest in this life and in the world. So for me, he was the founder of Chassidus. So for me, being a Lubavitcher Chossid must be living inside of that prism, that framework, that context, right? Like to unfold the fullness of who I am. And to be a champion, just as the Baal Shem Tov said about himself, to be a champion for the unfolding of the fullness and of the divinity and of the limitlessness of the potentiality of every living being in the world. So right there, for me, boom. For me, it's like being a Lubavitcher Chossid, which, of course, that ball got rolling beginning with the Baal Shem Tov. And being a coach, it's one and the same for me. Because for me, being a coach, even that being a coach, it's like, I think people probably have some stereotypes about what it means being a coach. And I just use that word, I kind of use that word sparingly. For me, what I do with people is love them radically, deeply, be a stand and a champion for their magnificence, for their greatness, which so often in their own perception and in their own way of viewing themselves is off limits or in their blind spot. So just to love someone radically, be a champion for their full unfoldment, for the full expression of who they are, for their divinity, for their gifts in the world. That's what I do. And that's actually how I looked at the Rebbe also. I look at the Rebbe and I see that's what the Rebbe is. He's just an embodiment of radical love and championing every living being to unfold fully. And I believe that that's the game that we're here for. And ultimately, it all is meant to reveal the core divinity that is actually expressing itself throughout this all of existence. So that's what I do with people. It's for me, a mission, a purpose. It's my own vitality. It's my belief system. It's all just one thing. Being a Lubavitcher Chossid, a disciple of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, a disciple of the Baal Shem Tov, and basically being a coach, which for me is being radically loving and a radical champion for whoever I'm in interaction with, and whoever I'm in conversation with, and whoever is in my orbit, whoever's in my sphere. Chelkei ba'olam, to borrow the expression from Chassidus, to awaken and to like rise up into the fullness of who they are, of the gifts that they have, of who they can be, and the life that they can be in generating and enjoying simultaneously. So I don't know if that answers the question, but that's me. Sometimes I forget sometimes I just don't even know what the question was anymore because I'm just so whatever expressing myself and my passion. So hopefully it lands somehow in the form of an answer to the question.
Beautiful.
And I turn the question on to you, either Moishe or Aryeh. You guys are both Lubavitcher Chossid. You guys both coach professionally. What does it all mean to you? What do you do? What does it mean to you? You know.
Aryeh, go ahead.
Yeah. So, firstly, I want to say that I get coached. That's really what opened me up to how unbelievable this opportunity is of connecting with someone else who's, been and is on their journey, to help me, open myself up. And Fitz is my coach, who's a magnificent and deeply gifted person. My kids recently started joking with me that my my favorite word is profound, because I use it a lot, because I like profound things. So I use that word a lot. And Fitz, you're a profound person. And I'm a person who's really on my journey all my life. And that's clear. It's clear to anyone who knows me. It's clear from the fact that I have, a podcast that's in the self-help realm, if you will. Of course, aligned with, not aligned with, an expression of all of the Chassidus that I learned. But with all of that, with this journey, and we're all on a journey, and every person is, as Alter Rebbe tells us, we're all striving.
Sorry, I'm sorry for interrupting you. What's your podcast? Let people know what it is so they can.
Beginning Within. You can find it on any of the podcast platforms, Spotify, on your Apple, iTunes, etc. So we're all on a journey. The Alter Rebbe tells us, we're all striving to be a Beinoni. Essentially, as some people would say it, we're all strugglers. We're all struggling. That may not be the most optimistic way of positioning it, but we're all in our journey and on our process. But I think there are different levels of journeying, and there's journeying with a major burden on our back, and like, oh my goodness, and how am I ever going to, and is it even possible? And the longer we carry that burden on our back, the more hunchback we become, actually, and the more we give in to the weight that's on our back. Or if someone is standing tall with that burden and saying, the Eibishter invested in me. There's so much potential, like you just quoted from the Baal Shem Tov, which really, that Hayom Yom, when I read that Hayom Yom, it's one of the few things when I read, I feel emotion. Like the absolute clarity that the Baal Shem Tov is expressing, that exists within every one of us. And it has to be our willingness, and this is part of the struggle, our willingness to struggle to tap into that. And ein chavash mater satzmei, we can't pull ourselves out of where we are, but someone else can really do that unbelievably. And one of the things that I really learned is that I have to be committed to that fully. I have to really be committed to that, to like really not just talk about wanting to tap into that, but to really be courageous about it. And one of the ways that really was the clincher for me was actually deeply investing, demonstrating to myself that I'm deeply invested in actually doing this for myself. And that was by beginning to get coached. And in that process, I realized that I can give this tremendous opportunity, because I'll call them the breakthroughs that I was experiencing. By way of example, there's a project that I was imagining. There was a project that I had really believed in, really wanted to do, and I was working on it for 13 years. right? Now, when you work on a project for 13 years, that means that you really want to do it, but you don't really, really want to do it. It's like, yeah, theoretically, I would love to do this, but I'm just not doing it, right? And then just when I started being coached, and all of that richness that the Baal Shem Tov speaks about that lies within us started to wake up, and then suddenly I'm not thinking about doing it. No, there's no more thinking about doing it. There's just doing it, and I'm doing it, and it's a big project.
Care to share with us what this project is, or is it a secret?
Yeah, sure. So the project is a course for 12-year-old boys preparing themselves for bar mitzvah, so that they have a crash course in Yiddishkeit, which demonstrates to them at that young age what I think most people don't even experience by the age of 80 or 90, and that is the richness, how meaningful and relevant Yiddishkeit is, Judaism is to every, how to our lives, to our day-to-day lives, and that they shouldn't see it as some dogma or rituals that they have to go through. Their bar mitzvah shouldn't be an experience where they're checking out, but actually where they're checking in. And that, I'm very passionate about this, but I wasn't doing it. I was talking about it. I was thinking about it, right? And there's a very big gap between thinking and doing. And so then from that, I also began to realize that I have an obligation, because I have the ability to offer what I'm receiving to others who really, really need to receive this, and who can really bring their magnificent divine self into the world to shine in a much more powerful way once they have someone who's outside of them, just simply outside of them, someone outside of them, to really just show them, the stories that we tell ourselves, and the small beliefs we have about ourselves, and how untrue they are, and like you said, to champion them, to just show them that that's not who you are. My goodness, if only we knew, if only we get to know half of who we are in our lifetime, right? That would be tremendous. And so I started also with hesitation, because who am I, and do I have the ability to do this, and is it going to work? I started to coach people, and it's maybe the most meaningful and the most fulfilling thing I'm doing. It's like literally seeing individuals, entering at one, on one level, and suddenly they go deep into themselves, and they're like, wow, they're shining, they're magnificent, and just from the gratitude, because it's an experience that usually they, I don't think either of them have ever had before in their life, the same way I didn't. And so the gratitude is just immense, because you're experiencing something you always desired, and yet you really in some way had no idea where to go and how to get. So this has been a tremendous step in my journey, and I don't even have an iota of a doubt about whether this is the right thing for me to do. I think this may be the holiest step in my journey so far. So yeah, that's my experience with being coached and with coaching.
It's beautiful. Thank you, Aryeh. Thank you, Fitz. Moishe Chanin here.
Moishe
Moishe, yeah. I could go on for a while, but the name Dove is something I totally missed out for a long time, and as a way of accessing more from within me. I was coached, and in the coaching conversation, I realized, oh my gosh, there's a more ownership of space that's available to me that I'm not taking. And I'm like, wait, that's my name. And that's when I brought the name Dave back. So I figured I'll introduce myself that way. So many ideas I'd love to share, but I'll share a little bit of my experience and how I got introduced to the beyond coaching, because I had an idea of what coaching is. And even today, sometimes I'm going to use an extreme word, tortured by my own idea of what coaching is. And I'll explain. I did a course in coaching. I began coaching. It was very impactful. It was very meaningful. And I got coached. It was very impactful, very meaningful. And it became something that I always wanted to do, but it was always something that was on the sidelines. Somebody asked me, what do you do? Oh, I do bookkeeping, and on the side, I do coaching sometimes. Eventually, somebody challenged me, and he said, because it went from I do coaching on the side, and then it became, I'm a coach, but I'm getting most of my income from bookkeeping or working in a business, so I'm building a coaching practice, you know? One time somebody told me, like, Moishe, why don't you just say you're a coach? Why can't you just say you're a coach? And it was very difficult, man. There was just the practice of telling somebody that, what do you do? Oh, I do coaching, and just shut my mouth and not say anything else was really, like, that was a massive exercise for me. Everything changed for me. First, I decided I was going to leave the job and I was going to jump into the deep end and just go into coaching, not knowing what's going to happen, like any entrepreneur, right? And then COVID hit right around then, you know? So like a lot, like all of a sudden got put on hold. Most of my clients didn't continue. And then around that time as well is when I met Fitz, and he had a profound impact on my life from our interaction. I recommend that if you're watching this, just take a look. There's an article that I wrote about our interaction, and it's in Times of Israel. It's an article, if you just look, Moishe Chanin, and there's self-harm and addiction and what's it all about, something like that.
Let's link it. After the video, we can link Aryeh's podcast, we can link the article, whatever we refer to.
Oh, okay, beautiful. Yeah, so it talks about our interaction, and it had a profound impact on me, and I had no idea that Fitz was a coach. He was just a guy I was seeing in Shul, and we had a conversation, and he invited me to have another conversation sometime after Shabbos. And we had a conversation, and it was also more impactful. He was just sitting there asking me questions, just being himself. I did not know Fitz well. And then he invited me to a second conversation. I said, I would love that. Like, oh my gosh, where did this guy come from? You know, I mean, this is a time when I'm immersed in the 12-step fellowship, doing that work. I'm immersed in therapy. And I'm immersed in working on myself and in that lifestyle. And all of a sudden this guy is like he really has everything that all these other pieces are missing, or all the pieces that I'm missing within these areas, all of a sudden it's coming out in one place. And after the third time, he's like, would you like to make this a regular thing where we sit and we talk? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, okay, well, I'm a coach. I'm like, oh, right? I didn't even know he was a coach. And I'm so glad I didn't, because I would have associated what coaching is based on the idea of what I thought coaching was. And that's why I'm going to go back to what I was saying earlier. Sometimes my idea of what a coach is literally tortures me. For example, just a few weeks ago, I'm sitting with Fitz, and we're having a conversation, and I'm like, have all these ideas. You know, okay, this is what I said. I said, I would love to perform better as a coach. If anybody's paying attention, the word perform is just like, oh my God. Yeah, there's so much information just in that word. Okay, I want to perform better as a coach because I know I've been performing better before and I'm slacking down. And then the second one was, I would love that after my coaching sessions, I totally don't assess myself whether I did good or I didn't good. I just want to move. I finished the coaching session, and now I'm going to have lunch. I just want to have lunch. I don't want to be thinking and going back. Did I do good? Did I not do good? And what this was this idea that coaching is like, I call it a suit, right? There's this pressed suit and a tie, and that's what, and its image and its description of what a coach is, and it's out there. It's up there somewhere, and I'm not it. And I just want to go back to it. And I just want to put it on, wear it, go into the coaching session, perform, and then come out. So what that implies automatically is that I am not a coach, and coaching is this model, and I'm supposed to step into it. and what I've learned, which is the biggest gift of all, really, and I see this as the answer to literally everything in regards to spiritual and emotional health and ideal and fulfillment. When who I am is anything separate from me, right? If who I am is anything separate from my ideal, as if the ideal is out there and I am here, is literally the cause of like so many issues. What am I going to get it? Am I not going to get it? Is something threatening it? Anxiety. It's too far. I'm never going to get it. Depression. It hurts so much to not be that. It's so painful. Addiction. Like it's literally like everything comes down to this stuff. So thinking about others and what they think of me. Wait, if I know who I am and I'm being who I am, automatically I won't care about what other people think of me. That's just what's going to happen, because who I am is not dependent on what they think of me. They don't determine my identity. So coaching for me is, as Fitz said, and I'm just going to say it, I believe it's just going to be the same thing in different words, is ultimately I'm born with an internal compass and alarm system and a map and a treasure, right? And the treasure is be you, because you are a gift to the world. And the Eibishter and God says, here, world, the world can't, like the Rebbe said, right? The world cannot continue without you. So here is the gift of Fitz. Here is the gift of Aryeh. Here is the gift of Moishe, right? And who I am as a gift to the world, as long as I am being that, all the other stuff melts away. Who I am is being expressed, as Fitz called it, the unfolding, right? Because what happens is I grow up in a world, and throughout my life, my childhood, my teenage years, my adulthood, these ideas, klippas, if anybody knows Chassidus, cover up the truth. Somebody will call me a name, which was my experience. I was called a lot of names when I was a kid. I've done things that I'm embarrassed of, and I came to conclusions that I called myself names. And all these ideas of who I am gets covered up and covered up and covered up. And then next thing I know, I'm trying to search and find myself again. Where am I? And all of a sudden, I don't know where the idea comes from, but the idea comes is that who I am is out there somewhere. It's not in here. It's out there somewhere. So coaching is a process of uncovering, of unfolding. Right? And what I used to think about coaching was I am here, the goals I have are here, and then there's just a process to get there. Linear thinking, as Fitz calls it. The more I can realize that everything that I would love and who I am is all, not just it's all me, but it's all here and it's all right now. And I think that goes back to what Aryeh said just earlier today. What was it that you said?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
It's up to me. I don't know. Fitz, you said what
Yeah. There's no one better than me to do this. I actually said it about this, the 13-year project. There's no one better than me to do this. And the way that I ultimately do it is just fine.
Right.
It doesn't need
so there's no judgment about it.
Right. It doesn't need any better.
Right, because if God wanted you to be any better and to have more capabilities at this very moment, he would have given it to you and you would have been doing it.
Precisely.
Right?
Yeah.
Best I can with the tools I have right here, right now. No judgments about it.
Yeah.
So that's in general the idea of what the coaching is. Like, who are you? Let's have a deep conversation, a fearless conversation. And let me call you out on your fears of how you're not expressing who you are by paying attention to words like performance, words like I need, words like express the idea that it's out there somewhere. And in the most loving, gentle way, especially because I've been there and I still get there because I have a coach that calls me out as well. Bring it back. Wait 1 second. Maybe you don't. And this is like one of the first ones, right? So I come to Fitz and I say, okay, one of the things I want to work on, I want to acquire knowledge. I want to read books. I want to things. And he's like, why do you want to read books? Because if I have knowledge, then I'll be able to serve somebody who I thought I can't serve. And when I say serve, I'm talking about coach. So he's like, what's your idea about knowledge as the way, the step in between you and being a coach? And then he challenged me. And what we discovered is that my gift as a coach to my clients is much more my questions and not my answers. And I won't necessarily find questions in the book. I'll find questions through sitting with somebody, through me sitting with my coach, seeing the questions he asks me, the questions that he offers me to ask myself, and then take those questions and share them with others, or sit there curiously and lovingly and see, 1 second, if this person is everything, if this person's a gift to the world, what's a question that can uncover that? So, very passionately, I'll still pause. I'll pause, and yeah, I wonder what thoughts come up for you as I speak, and I'll pass it on to Fitz.
Oh gosh, this is thank you, Moishe and Aryeh, Moishe Dov and Aryeh Yitzchak. You know, as both of you guys are speaking, there's something that's like consolidating in me that I want to share. That again, for me, this is the thing. I think that, you know, when you were talking like about, you know, it's not out there and this and uncovering, just uncover. It's you. It's in you. It is you. It's just that you've become attached to some lies, to some illusions, to some distortions that, you know, so this is called klippas, peels that cover up on the fruit, right?
Ruchstus.
Yeah. So there's nowhere to go outside of yourself. It is you already, right? And just creating that context alone creates a greater access and a greater opening to that, you know, that self and that deepest truth. And there's nowhere else to go, and things don't have to always be constricted by linear thinking and what I like to call Newtonian physics. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction, but like everything is caused by something else, by something else, by something else. So it now becomes this linear tapeworm that extends endlessly of out there-ness, you know? And like, as you're sharing all of that, it's like, I can't help but wonder, is that not what the Rebbe was saying when he says, Mashiach is here, open your eyes? Because we so often think, no, Mashiach is not here, he will come in the future. He will come in the future. It's his orientation. This is a frame of reference. He will come in the future, and, you know, now we need to be on a prolonged or hopefully shortened kind of trajectory to get there. What if the Rebbe is actually opening up a new conversation and saying, what if Mashiach is here? Can you consider that? You know, I would go even so far as to say, what if you are Mashiach? That's how crazy I get with this, right? What if you are Mashiach? And by the way, you know, it sounds crazy, but to me, I just feel like I'm actually just honoring what the Rebbe says. Like, I'm actually just like taking it seriously instead of, you know, homiletically or figuratively. The Rebbe brings in his sichas from Reb Nachum Chernobyl. Every Yid Yechidish Eben Nefesh has a nitus of Mashiach in him, a nitus of Moishe. This goes back to the Tanya, right? So it's like, why do I need to be busy convincing myself, yeah, but it's only a nitus, it's only a spark? Like, why do I need to be convincing myself my whole life that I'm not that, I'm not that? I know it says that I have a spark of Mashiach in me, but I'm not Mashiach. I have a spark of Mashiach. You know, this is a kind of a narrative that people get caught up in, and I'm just like, well, what if I honor that I have a spark of Mashiach in me? And what if I fan that spark? And what if that spark turns into a little flame? And what if that little flame adds some more fuel into it and turns into a little bonfire? And what if I keep adding fuel to it and that becomes into a fire that just burns, that just lights up, right? Everyone else's spark, because this fire is like raging, and so the sparks that are around it are just they're just gonna get ignited, right? So it's like all of these ideas to me, because I'm a Lubavitcher, and I live inside of the knowing that all of the greatest goodness of the world, material and spiritual, is here through the Torah and through Chassidus. I'm not saying it's not anywhere else. I don't know what about anywhere else. Maybe it's somewhere else too for someone else. I don't know. But here I am as a Lubavitcher Chossid and hearing the Rebbe talk. So it's like, to me, and that's why you said you didn't know I was a coach. I hate calling myself a coach. I'm just a liver, a live, like being alive, like an aliver. I don't even know how to turn that state of being into a verb. I'm just being alive. What?
You're Amachaya.
What'd you say? I lost it. Yeah. Just a being aliver and a lover. I just desire to embody the truths of the Baal Shem Tov and the truths of the Rebbe and the truths of Chassidus. And, that's, so yeah, I mean, at some point, someone, this is what I do for a living as well. People pay me for it, which is like, wow, that's like the best of both worlds, to be able to practice being alive and practice being in love and practice being on the skinny branches, on the edge, on the cutting edge of existence, because that's like, I feel where the Rebbe was, like on the cutting edge of existence. Let's push this world over the edge, 2000 Kent, the Rebbe's like saying, guys, like play all out. So for me, it's like, yeah, it's just, this whole thing about coaching is just, it's like inextricably intertwined and connected with the messages that I'm hearing and seeing from the Rebbe. And I gotta say, to be in full disclosure, I think it's really jarring for some people, because I think a lot of people, we read stuff on Chassidus and we kind of shelve it. It's like, oh, every person is Eretz Chayfetz, oh, every person has Nitzah Mashiach. Yeah, but we read something and we hear it as a nice idea, a cute concept. I'm just like, really? Like, am I really going to go to the bank with that? I mean, what are people going to think of me if I like actually start to live out of that? Like, people are going to think I went crazy. Like, it's not, socially appropriate or normal or acceptable. Like, be radically loving, like to even I tell people I love you all the time, and I had someone that I was working with a while back, and at the end of our work, he's like, Fitz, I never told this to you, but out of all of our work together, the single most impactful thing was that you always would finish our sessions and say, I love you. He's like, people don't do that. I never heard a man say to another man, I love you. And he told me this at the tail end. This was like we were completing like 6 months of work together. And he's like, and I've begun to be more loving to my students and to my family. And I'm like, boom. I mean, the Baal Shem Tov says for Ahavas Yisrael, you got to have Mesiras Nefesh, right? And like, to me, that's Mesiras Nefesh, saying I love you to another man, which is considered, some people just consider it to get squirmy and uncomfortable, like, ooh, what is this, And it's like, well, what if this stuff is real? Well, if Baal Shem Tov meant what he's saying, So I'm a little, that's on the one hand, I'm saying, I'm just really crave and desire to live in alignment and in embodiment of the teachings of Chassidus. And at the same time, I'm aware that sometimes freaks people out. Like, if you actually take a teaching of Chassidus and you actually dare take it to the bank, it's considered a little weird and interesting. So I'm aware of but that's me. I crave to embody Rebbeness, Moshiachness, Geulanis, love, life, divinity. And so that's it.
Beautiful. I have so many thoughts, but I'm going to pass it to Aryeh, please.
Well, I'm going to comment on some of the things you said. Just two things you said. The first thing is, I'm just going to share my experience, right? Because you said, a lot of times when we are confronted, Chassidus tells us things like the Nitzah of Mashiach, right? So we take it, but we don't go to the bank with it, we shelve it. So in my personal experience has been, I never took it. I don't know how this is for other people. And I think that even the conversation, whenever the conversation was, and I would sometimes put on the table by a Fabrengen or by some conversation, like, do you really believe this? Like, where does this show, in what way are you showing that you actually even believe this, right? And the conversation is shunned because, like, how do you even have this conversation? Because there's this inner conflict we have. We fully buy into it, maybe deep down somewhere, but practically it's like, where does this fit? So it's not like I ever even held it to shelve it. I never even held it. It actually stayed in the book as a complete concept. And the amazing thing is that suddenly you're shown, you're shown by someone who's on the road to actually attempting to, and actually on whatever level that person is on their journey, holding this to the best of their ability and being told, you can hold this too. It's a matter of courage to actually just stand there and say, yes, this really is accepting who we are. This is a nitzis of my neshama. And it's courageous because it's not common. So and like you said about love, it just sounds crazy to people. People are not used to it. And so it requires actual courage to do that. Like I had a conversation at our Shabbos table, 17-year-old boy, really smart kid. And, he said something that a lot of people always say, if God would show himself to me then, right? And we got into like a passionate conversation about that, as if that's really what's holding you up. And if God were to show himself then, right, then what, right? And the fascinating thing is that, and this is really what coaching is all about, completely, entirely all about. Moishe said that, you said that, Fitz. Olam, world, Miloshin Helam, is that there's a concealment. Is God revealing himself to me? 100% in his full infinite presence. I'm not showing up to him. That's what's going on. It's because I am so full of so many layers that are concealing the reality. That is the reality. And the convenient thing, and I'm not saying that we do this out of convenience, we do this also out of just not knowing, and also not having the support to be able to know that we're allowed to, not only allowed to, but it's incumbent, it's an obligation upon us to know that no, it's not that if he would show himself to me, it's would I show myself to him? And there's nothing more he desires than for me to just show up. But my gosh, showing up is terrifying. It really is terrifying. I know it every time I speak. I mean, I know it right now as I'm speaking. Like, I know there are so many layers that are holding me back from, like, just, as we say, just letting it rip, just let your whole being just be there without restriction. And that's painful.
Amazing.
Painful to realize how restricted.
It's interesting just to help people make an association. I think like the Alter Rebbe talks about in Tanya about being ma'ir rachmanis for the neshama.
Yes.
You just said it.
Yeah.
But when we read it in the book,
second half.
What's that?
The second half of Perek Lamed Beis.
Yeah, but when we read it in the book, it's like some baba that was But you just touched that raw nerve, that desire the desire that we all have somewhere in us if we're paying attention, for that innate desire for full self-expression, for full meeting God and meeting our own divinity and meeting the divinity of all.
Yeah. And when I'm coaching someone, I remind myself constantly, speak to them the truth that they've been waiting to hear. Don't pander to them, don't just stand there and support their smallness. Like, tell them the truth. And there's this fear, like, I'm going to lose them. It's going to be too hard for them. And every time, and I have to do it another 10,000 times probably, until I am fully so deeply in touch with this, until it's actually an expression of just my natural being, to know that this is what they want, this is what they're waiting for. It's like there's no one that's going to say this to them. And I was just in a conversation with someone yesterday, and this person's in a position, I don't want to say too much, but he's in a position where it's very hard for someone like him to have real friends because there are a lot of strings attached. So, you know, it'd be hard for him to know, you know, who's there for him truly. And we were talking about some, you know, very important things. And I had to remind myself before I started and throughout it all to tell him what no one else is going to tell him. If there is something that needs to be told to him, or to ask him questions that other people will be scared to ask him. And that's what makes it. That's what, when I do that, I'm truly serving the full potential of this person. And really that gives him access to bring out what, you know, he may be struggling to bring out.
I'm just going to add that it also allows you to be a fulfillment of who you are. Because if you have access to a question that you're not speaking, it's basically going back to what you said earlier, which is there's nobody that could do it better than me, right?
Right, yes.
If I am here and I have this question and I know that this could serve this person, then as a way of fulfilling on who I am, I ask this question as a way of fulfilling on who they are. Yes. Which is really at the core of everything. There's who I am as a gift to the world, and am I being that or not? Yeah. And how can I get help to be that? I did want to make a point onto this idea of knowing and love, but let's just talk about knowing for a second. When I speak something that I'm afraid to say, but I know it's truth and it will serve the other person at the Mesiras Nefesh, at the risk of sacrificing something that I have an idea that I will lose, by me speaking it, what I'm doing is less am I teaching them something they don't know, and more I'm reminding them something of what they already knew but forgot. Which is a very profound thing.
Beautiful.
Right?
Beautiful.
Because we're presenting these radical ideas, right? And have our eyes open to the world that says you're nuts. And no, you don't have enough money in your bank account. And no, you don't have the credentials. And no, you can't do this. But in the face of all that, I'm just going to throw these words in. Forgive me if I'm using it at the wrong place. But a kol d'mama daka, a little voice comes in and says, 1 second. Maybe you're greater than what you think. And it enters into the person, and the person asks themselves that question. Maybe I am greater than myself. And what that serves as is less of me giving you information that you didn't know, but more because I believe this is true, I'm going to offer it to you, and it's going to resonate, and you're going to be reminded, because otherwise, how can you possibly accept this idea? The world is saying that you can't be greater. And then you're reminded of something that's beyond, right? You're reminded of something that is beyond. And maybe, I don't know, this is just an idea, maybe this is this whole idea of being in the mother's womb and being taught everything and then getting the flick from the malach and forgetting everything as a way of preparing me for the world. Because if I'm to be told an idea that's so radical and impossible, like Torah, in the world that is Helen, in a world that is concealed, I won't be able to, why would I ever accept that? How can I possibly accept something that's beyond world, that's beyond what I see and beyond what I know? The only way it makes sense for me is that if the information is already there. And this is one of the ways of expressing the idea of taking something that's beyond the world and giving it a place, creating a space for it in the world. I know these are theoretical ideas, but this is a real practical thing. And if it's to be used, and that's what I love about the coaching relationship, is like, this is what we're going to do. We're making a commitment to doing everything we possibly can to bring forth these ideas or this understanding of who you are into the world. and we know that there's going to be things. Can you fearlessly express it? Just let yourself think that it's possible. It's not going to happen, but can you let yourself think it? Can you let yourself speak it? Like, I am a coach. Oh my gosh, that was so uncomfortable. But I created, anyway. And let's just, if we spoke about the Baal Shem Tov, let's just speak about the Baal Shem Tov again. When he saw his Talmud tell another Talmud that he's going to rip him up like a fish. And then he told all the Chassidim to put your arms over each other, and they were able to see how that is what was happening, which means Kol Sheken V'Kol Chamer. Even furthermore, and even more applicable, let's look at the positive. If what I speak creates, and this is like practical stuff, right? And another thing I thought about was like, the Chassid of
I just want to say, I think that we're going to have to do a follow-up conversation just to unpack that idea. That's like a bomb that you just like dropped. Like, what? That how you name is like a practical thing? What are you talking about? I think for a lot of people, they go, what are you talking about? What are you smoking? Or, what are you tripping on? So each one of these ideas, I think that like for people to really gain some access to it, right? That the veil of conceptuality and belief gets pierced, where a person is all of a sudden experientially face to face with that thing. Oof, that's like that's which is what we do. Obviously, that's what we do. That's what we do with people, and that's what the journey is, and that's why it's so beautiful. But I just want to just acknowledge over here that any one of these ideas really is
needs unpacking.
Yeah.
I guess I'll finish up with one more idea, and then we could all because we're going to wrap up now. There's a story of Reb Zusha Anipoli, who before he passed away, he said, I think it was right before he passed away, he said, I don't fear that when I come up to the heavens, they're going to say, Zusha, why weren't you like Moishe Rabbeinu? They're going to say, Zusha, why weren't you Zusha? Right? So I used to hear this story, and guess what I used to do? I used to say, but that's Reb Zusha. He could do that. He can make a statement like that. Me? Who am I? I did what he said that he wasn't going to do with Moshe Rabbeinu. I did with him. And I said, since I could never be a Zusha, what's the point in even trying to be me? I'm not even somebody worth trying to be. Which is sad. It's really sad. But
that's a clever. That's we do that all the time. It's like a clever ego move. And it looks, but sometimes it looks like humility, right? Like it's humble to it would be considered arrogant to dare compare oneself to Reb Zusha. Right? On its surface, it seems like it's humble to write myself off and to distinguish and say, no, Reb Zusha is something else. It's obviously not me. But it's actually it's the ego in disguise. Because in that process, I completely diminish my own divinity. I completely diminish who I am, who God has put me here to be. Right? And so it's basically a holy looking way of absolving all of my responsibility and of denying the divine radiance that's desperately waiting to shine through me into the world.
Yeah. I'm just going to put it in other words just to in case somebody didn't grasp what Fitz said. It's that you're basically saying, God, you created the world. Most things are gifts. Zusha, he was a gift. The Rebbe was a gift. Me? I'm a waste of space. Me?
Sediment.
I'm sediment. I'm a thing. The Eibishter was trying to create gifts for the world, and I was left in the oven for too long, or somebody missed a couple of pieces of the ingredients. Eibishter, you did everything right, but over here you kind of screwed up.
I'm the leftover dough that didn't fit into the kakash cake. The little leftover.
And it's not even cookie dough that you can have as a snack.
Yeah,
it's like Beautiful. All right, so I'm going to say my piece, and thank you all for whoever made it this far in our conversation. And if there's any way that any of us can be of service to you, I think we're going to all be tagged in this. There's a way to reach us through Facebook Messenger or whatever. The purpose of this is because we're living a certain way. We used to live a certain way, and it wasn't serving us. We were on the search, and we've Baruch Hashem found something that's really aligned from every direction. And we're here to just share it with others, with looking for nothing in return other than just us being this now. Yes. Okay. So I'm going to pass it on to Aryeh.
Yeah. Thank you, Fitz and Moishe, for this conversation. And we all, there's so much invested within us, and seek out every avenue you have. We should never give up on our magnificence. I'm not talking about giving up on ourselves, but giving up on our magnificence, on the potential that we have. And it's really, really within reach. We just have to be deeply committed to it, and we're all of service.
Thank you, Aryeh.
Thank you, Moishe and Aryeh, both. I just want to finish off with one small point. In case this hasn't communicated in this conversation, this is not something that this is for anyone and everyone who's alive. Becoming the fullness of who you are. That there's a famous line: "As good is good, is better, nicht noch besser." Or that the Rebbe said, because God is limitless. So that means the potentiality that we're carrying in us is limitless. This is not about like, oh, I'm good, I don't have any problems. Great, right? It's wonderful that you don't have problems. And how are you holding yourself back from giving into the world and being in the world the fullness of what you have to give and the fullness of who you have to be? It's not, we're not talking about problem solving, even though, yes, through a journey like this, a lot of problems get solved. We're not talking about healing or resolution. We're talking about becoming the fullness. And it's for anyone. It's for all of us, right? And it's endless. That's one of the reasons why I love it. It's actually a compelling game because, there's always a new level, just like one of those, games on the computer. There's like the new, you need the new, knowing that there's more and more levels kind of keeps you. So I just wanted to presence that. Thank you, Moishe. Thank you, Aryeh. Thank you to everyone who's listening to this live afterwards. If any of us can serve and you would love to be in conversation, you know how to find us. And let's link the resources, Moishe, that we've mentioned in this as well.
Yeah, sure. You got it.
Beautiful.
God bless everybody.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.